So earlier this week, the week of this episode coming out, there was a screenshot that was taken from Facebook and uploaded onto a group on WhatsApp that I'm in. Now, it was a status post from a woman called Catherine. I'm not going to add the other names for, I guess, anonymity reasons and shit. And it was something that was relating to sex and how equal it is. Now, on her status post, she comes off to, try and make it seem as though sex is supposed to be equal and, babes seem to benefit a lot more and shit. I felt like it sort of existed in and of its own bubble. Like, it's not that it's not a bad statement, it's just that it sort of ignores a lot of the current realities that are there right now. Now, let me just read the text for you. It says, and I quote, "You give him sex to show him that you love him. But when he gives you sex to show you that he loves you, he must pay or spoil you. Sex must be repaid with sex and money must be repaid with money. The same with gifts. You give him sex, he gives you sex. He give you money, you give him money. He buy you gifts, you buy him gifts. Don't forget that you also feel good and benefit from sexual satisfaction just like him. So why must he pay? Sex is 50-50. Stop selling it in a relationship. If you want to sell it, go to the streets like others." End quote. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this actually does seem like this woman actually understands a lot of the issues that guys go through. Maybe she has sons and they've told her about this shit, or maybe she's just a very conscious and caring lady and, she just wants stuff to be fair. And by all means, I actually fully agree with a good chunk of what she says. The only thing is, most of what she's saying about sex, I can't say I disagree with, it's just that it doesn't actually seem very practical. Like, sex is not really a 50-50 thing. It's not like, the powers that be or the power dynamics that come with sex are actually 50-50. At least not on a social level. And I think maybe in a same-sex scenario, that's when you could probably say that, sex is very 50-50. But when it's opposite sex, it's very hard to actually say that there's a 50-50, power dynamic when it comes to sex. And it's something that has been backed up by a saying that I've used quite a lot on this podcast, which the Red Pill community I'd probably say originated it, which is women hold the keys to sex and men hold the keys to the relationship. And I don't think you necessarily have to believe in the Red Pill's beliefs and shit or whatever it is that a lot of Red Pill people talk about or a lot of these more radical male figures talk about. But that is actually one rule that you can sort of back up quite a bit. And it's not like it's particularly hard to do that, because at the end of the day, all you have to look at is the pros and the cons of both and why they sort of lie on the gender scale. And you can kind of start to see why it is that a good chunk of the responsibility will fall on either side, thus meaning that they get the keys. Because you look at sex, when you look at the pros of sex and, you look at the pros of relationships, pros of sex, in as much as it's something that guys want so much, I tend to think that women benefit quite a lot more from it. They have more nerve endings around their vagina. They have, the clit, the G-spot. So they will get way more pleasure from it. If they have good, consistent sex, that's the glow up that happens. The body starts to change shape a little bit here and there. And it is something that has been noticed by quite a number of people. And also, when you look at the initiation of sex, if the woman says no, then sex isn't going to start. Like, it's pretty much what it is. For a guy, even though I say no, as long as I get a boner, you could probably shag me and there'll be very little consequence to it. If you try the same exact thing with a babe, then you're pretty much going to be accused of rape from the get-go. With guys, there's almost like a certain leniency towards it because, I don't know, I guess niggas can't be raped or some shit. Or at least that's what some people believe. Now, you look at relationships on the other hand, in as much as, say, the Red Pill community and a bunch of guys nowadays make it seem as though there's no benefits for guys. In relationships, the reality of it is guys actually do stand to benefit quite a lot from relationships. And I've tried having the discussion and the argument with a lot of women, especially the married ones, about how it is that guys still lose out and shit. And I never usually come out on top. Like, you kind of think about it as a dude. You have the pleasure of having a helper, and this is under ideal conditions. You have a great wife who's willing to be submissive, caters towards like the four main things that niggas want. She's beautiful, she's caring, she's supportive, and she fucks good. Simple. You have a beautiful wife that's a great helper who can listen to you and give you emotional comfort and compassion. She can listen to you so you won't have to carry all your problems alone. If you have kids, they'll pretty much be pushing your bloodline forward. when you think about the idea of, you're fighting with a lot of shit out here, you're pretty much competing the entire day, you go back home and you're received with open arms. And even though you had a shit day, like you're being accepted and you're told, you know what, sit, rest, you've had a long day, let me fix something up for you. I know it was shit today, but it'll probably be better tomorrow. You get? Like you can actually gain quite a bit from being in a relationship / being in a marriage. Then there's a social benefit that comes with being in a marriage. There's a little bit more respect that you'll get because you're a married man. Your chances of being considered for a leadership position actually increase dramatically because you're a married man. And as a result, the opportunities that you get because you're a married man actually do get to increase, because there is something good about being a married man. It shows that you're more mature, you're stable, you're dependable, blah, blah, blah. So guys actually do have benefits to it. Now, when you look at the cons, it's more or less the exact same way. When you look at the biggest consequences of sex, they usually do fall on the woman. There's the pregnancy. You can say that the guy will also suffer because of that, but the guy can run away. If you're a woman and you're pregnant, you can't run away from your pregnancy, not unless if you abort, of which if you abort, then you're still carrying the same damages to your body while the guy can continue fucking other bitches. Like, it is what it is. Then you look at things like STDs and STIs, HPV as a virus will affect you a hell of a lot more than it'll affect me as a guy. Then on top of that, HIV is actually easier transmitted to women than it is to men, at least from the last time I checked in statistics. So it's even worse for you than it is for me. Plus, a lot of other STDs, I can catch them earlier and deal with them at a much earlier stage. For you guys, it'll take a little bit longer. So by the time they're dealing with it, it's probably a hell of a lot worse. So when you kind of look at it, the cons of sex are actually heavier on the woman than they are on the guy. Then you look at the cons of the relationship. If you're not in a great relationship, first of all, there's the lack of peace, which people might not think is a big thing, but is actually a very, very big thing for guys. You're out fighting out there with the world. Then you come back home and then you have to start fighting with your wife, or you have to start dealing with noise or some shit. And that's why you find that some guys can't even sit at home. Like, they pretty much leave work, they go to the bar, they spend like all of their time in the bar, and then they just go home to sleep and then wake up in the morning, change, and go back to work. And it's not that they particularly like the bar. Sometimes they just don't like being at home because of all the noise and the problems that can come with it. Then on top of that, there's the possibility of divorce. Once you go through a divorce as a man, you're absolutely wrecked. It's not just the family that just gets twisted. The fact that your financial future can pretty much go down the drain. You can lose a lot of the assets that you got if you didn't sign a prenup. You can pretty much end up losing the opportunity to have a great connection with your own kids. And, they might end up even being turned against you by the woman that you supposedly married and had children with. Of which, when you kind of even look at the further effects of that, children from broken families and blah, 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 there's a whole list of crimes that they're more prone to having. And, a lot of the problems that can come from that. And at the end of the day, you end up suffering quite a bit as a man if you do not have a good relationship. But back to the main topic, because I feel like I've heavily digressed from it. Now, the thing that I do agree with this woman in terms of the entire statement that she made is the whole thing of repaying money with money and gifts with gifts, even though I don't necessarily agree that you can fully repay sex with sex. And the reason why I agree is because I feel for the longest time, guys have just been getting the shortest end of the stick possible. Like, normally people will complain, he does bare minimum, he doesn't do more than bare minimum. But I kid you the fuck not, us guys get even below bare minimum on a regular. Like, you will find that in a lot of cases, when guys decide to gift their girlfriends or their wives or just their significant others in general, you find that they actually try and put some effort to it. Now, I'm not going to say that it's all guys, but a lot of guys actually do put effort into it. Now, if they have a little bit more money, you'll find them either, splashing cash on them and then taking them for a trip and, giving them dinner and some shit. But guys rarely ever get that. And it's not just from a point of, there's a lot of babes that don't make that much money, which I still think is quite bullshit. It's more of they just don't put as much effort into celebrating their man. And then when asked, they sort of try to play around it by saying that they do not know how to gift a man. Of which there's very many ways of gifting a man. All you have to do is just put a little bit of effort in actually listening to him. Not listening to respond, but just listening to actually find out what it is that he likes, what it is that he doesn't like, what is it that he's interested in. Or, if you do actually run out of ideas, just go and look for something functional, something that can function as some sort of benefit to his current functional life, something practical like that. You can't just be buying socks or a tie every single bloody time. And this is where my issue usually comes in. Although my biggest problem with women is actually how they use sex as a gift. Like, I'm not saying that it's bad. By all means, all of us guys love a nice shag, and it's not like we're gonna turn down a good time. It's just that it's a very insufficient gift. Like, it's kind of like coleslaw. You never really serve coleslaw as a meal. It's usually as a side. And that's kind of how I look at sex. I don't think it should be used as a gift, not unless if there's something else that's accompanying it. And the thing is, guys have actually mastered this shit particularly well. A guy will, take his babe out, to like say Mombasa or like Diani for like the weekend, and he'll help out with shopping and he'll take out for dinner. Although it doesn't even need to be that expensive, just a simple experience, like maybe going to the national park, or maybe going for like indoor mini golf, or just trying something different. And then they'll accompany with something like lunch or dinner, and then she's taken back home, and then she's given really good pipe. Like, this guy will do his absolute best and make sure that he gives the absolute best pipe he's ever given. Like, you will find guys doing that. But let's look at our ladies on this other hand. Now, this gender on the other hand will pretty much just give sex. Like, they'll try to make it a little bit better. Like, maybe if the guy has this kind of lingerie that, he's seen you wear that he loves so much, that's where she'll wear it. Or, she'll give him head for like an extra 5 minutes. Or maybe she'll actually do some shit that he actually likes, but, she doesn't normally do. Like, getting on top and actually being there for longer than 14 strokes. Stuff like that. And after that, that's pretty much it for them. They'll pretty much leave it at that. And here's the thing. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. By all means, we actually enjoy that shit. It's just that you can't do that alone and then call it a gift. Like, if it was among a bunch of other things, then it would work. But that doesn't necessarily count as a gift. It's kind of like if you are having avocado every so often, like whichever way you kind of play around with it, whether you use it to make a sandwich, whether you add it as a side with the food, or whether you use it as a substitute to meat, at the end of the day, if you decide to make guacamole with it during a special occasion, it's not that it's going to be looked at as any less of a good food. It's just that, you get my point? Still avocado. So to kind of conclude all of this, let me just say this. While people will continuously try to make it seem as though stuff is equal and stuff is the same on both ends, that's not always the case. Sometimes double standards exist, and it's not entirely because of bad reasons. But all in all, I do not think that just because sex carries a much higher value with women, thus men want it more, means that women should place so much value on it that they forget that we value other things and that we value being treated in other ways. Something as simple as making my favorite food, or simply just choosing to spend quality time with me, can actually go a long way in terms of treating me right. It doesn't just have to be all gifts and money, kind of like the same way some of y'all want it, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be as bland and as plain as sex, regardless of how you want to play with it. But then again, there are some guys that also do want to be pampered, and I'd probably want to hear from them what their favorite gifting ideas are. Just the same way I'd want to know from the babes if they've tried other gifting ideas that have worked for them as well. So I want your thoughts on this. The DMs are open on IG, on Facebook. It is at Breaktime, on my site, on Twitter. It is at Bagaka the D. That is my personal handle. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.